Welcome, you've been chosen. It's like one day you're just living life and the next it's like someone flipped a switch. Ever felt that once you catch the attention of something bigger than yourself, the game changes? You become valuable. It's not paranoia to realize your life isn't unfolding unnoticed anymore. Think of it this way: in war, the top brass don't waste their time watching every single soldier. They keep their eyes on the assets that truly matter. That's you now. You're not just existing. You're being watched over, looked after almost like a VIP. Ever wonder why you dodged a bullet or 10 that should have taken you down? It wasn't just luck, trust me. It was protection. A force field powered by something far beyond human understanding. Imagine having guardians who are always on duty, never wavering, never giving up. These protectors don't take breaks, don't need sleep, and definitely don't punch out at 5 p.m. So here's what you need to understand. The fact that you're under a higher power's radar isn't some kind of heavy weight. It's a powerful statement. Your safety net is non-negotiable. And if that makes those who want to see you fall nervous, well, maybe they should have targeted someone less vital. First, surveillance isn't about suspicion. It's about massive investment. Surveillance isn't about distrust. It's about immeasurable investment. When you're being overseen by a force much greater than you, it's not because you're expected to fail or screw up. It's because what you carry inside is too priceless to be left unguarded. You don't protect things you're okay with losing, do you? You don't track something disposable. The sheer fact that constant eyes are on you proves that your existence is considered irreplaceable. It means there's something deep inside you, a purpose, a calling, an influence that can't be mishandled or destroyed. Nobody sends an armored truck for a pile of junk metal, but a vehicle filled with priceless artifacts that gets guarded at every turn. Your protection is a sign of something priceless within you. It's proof that your journey isn't random and your existence isn't a coincidence. You're being treated like someone whose failure would be too costly, whose absence would be devastating, and whose survival shifts the course for countless lives. That kind of attention isn't ordinary. It's a strategic necessity. The scale of your protection reflects the scale of your destiny. The fact that you're constantly monitored isn't an insult to your independence. It's a recognition that you play a vital part in a much grander design. This presence isn't breathing down your neck to control you. This presence is there to ensure you fulfill what you were destined for. It's a safety net, not a leash. This is why you can't take your protected life for granted. When higher powers oversee your journey, it's not because they expect you to crumble, it's because they will not allow failure to be the end of your story. Their stake in you is too high, their investment is too deep. The eyes on you are undeniable proof that your destiny isn't optional. It's essential. That's why your protection will never be up for debate. Second, the guard always matches the threat. The level of protection is always a direct reflection of the threat. The amount of security around you reveals the scale of what you're facing. Small lives attract small obstacles, but a life carrying significance attracts enemies that require a stronger shield. That's why some people can live carefree and untouched, while others, like you, Feel watched, protected, constantly shielded from unseen danger. It's not about favoritism. It's about an inevitable necessity. The higher your calling, the greater the opposition and the stronger the guard you require to remain intact. This is what many miss. They see this special treatment and see it as luxury, privilege, even unfair advantage. But what they can't grasp is that the guard over your life isn't extra. It's standard procedure for the level of warfare you face. It would be reckless to place a minimal shield around someone carrying a maximum assignment. The protection always corresponds to the intensity of the attacks designed to stop you. Every layer of defense around you is silent testimony to battles you're not even aware you're fighting. If the shield feels heavy, it's because the enemy's strategies are even heavier. If you feel constantly preserved while others slip through the cracks, it's because what you're carrying is more explosive and threatening to the forces of darkness. Your enemies won't waste their finest weaponry on a life that carries no real consequence. The fact that they do is why your protection is enforced at such a high level. So the guard around you isn't a sign of weakness. It's a testament to your profound significance. The powers that be don't waste their resources. Protection is given in direct proportion to the danger. The measure of security wrapped around your life is the most truthful measure of your destiny. It means your path is too critical to be left unguarded. Your influence is too significant to be cut short, and your assignment is too strategic to be lost. The guard isn't arbitrary. It matches the threat, and the threat itself is proof of the power of your future. Third, unseen forces track what you can't. You will never see most of the plots against you. That's why protection is non-negotiable. There are forces, conversations, and plans unfolding in places your eyes will never reach. Schemes can be hatched in silence, traps laid without leaving a trace. By the time you notice, it's already too late. This is why you're never left to your own limited awareness. You may be smart, cautious, even spiritually attuned, but no human being can detect every danger. The shield over your life blocks the attacks that slip under your radar. This unseen protection is humbling because it proves survival isn't based on your cleverness. There are too many things you didn't notice but were handled before they ever touched you, the illness that never took hold, the betrayal exposed just in time, the disaster diverted at the last second. All of these are things you could not have managed alone. What you couldn't see was seen for you, and what you couldn't fight was already neutralized before it even reached you. Enemies mistake this for luck, as if you simply happened to dodge what should have ended you. But it's not coincidence. It's coverage. They don't wait for you to sound the alarm. Their surveillance is already picking up signals you'll never detect, monitoring conversations. You'll never overhear, tracking movements you'll never see. You only experience the result of that protection, not the full scope of what was prevented. That's why your life is heavily guarded. You're not expected to constantly watch your back. That responsibility has been delegated. You're protected against dangers you don't even know exist. That's the clearest sign that your protection isn't an option. It's a permanent assignment over your life. This unseen shield is your greatest advantage because it ensures threats remain as just threats, never victories. Fourth, greater access comes with greater oversight. The higher you rise, the closer the watch on your life becomes. Access is never free, it always comes with surveillance. The moment you step into higher levels, you're no longer operating in open spaces where anyone can move without notice. You're in a guarded zone where every doorway has a lock and every movement is tracked. Not because you're being restricted, but because what you now carry has become too important to risk. Privilege never comes alone. It's always paired with guardianship. That's why greater visibility always feels heavier. You aren't just living for yourself anymore. You've entered a space where your influence touches others, where your decisions carry weight, where your downfall would be catastrophic. Because of that, they cannot allow you to walk unguarded. The access you've been given automatically upgrades the protection around you. What looks like a limitation is actually preservation. Many misinterpret this kind of watchfulness. They confuse surveillance with control, as if eyes on you mean a lack of freedom. But the truth is, the only reason such close monitoring exists is because your position demands it. Nobody bothers watching someone who has nothing to lose. The more you're entrusted with, the more you're observed. It's the mark of responsibility, not suspicion. This is where you must shift your perspective. Instead of resenting the surveillance, understand it as the clearest evidence that you've been given privilege. You've been entrusted with access that few receive. Because of that, you're treated differently. The eyes on you are proof that you've entered a higher rank. The guardianship isn't meant to limit you. It's meant to ensure you never lose what you've been entrusted with. Remember, access and surveillance are inseparable. If you've been granted the privilege of higher ground, you've also inherited the guardianship that comes with it. That's not a burden, it's an honor. It means your presence is too valuable to be unprotected, and your future is too vital to be left unchecked. Fifth, your life is a critical operation. Your life is of utmost importance. That means your existence carries weight that transcends personal comfort or private success. The weight of your calling is extraordinary, like a top-secret mission. It's intelligence so dangerous to leave exposed, too valuable to lose, too strategic to let fall into the wrong hands. Nations protect their secrets with vaults, encryption, and armed patrols. In the same way, you're surrounded by unwavering watchfulness because what you carry isn't just for you. It's tied to the destinies of others. This is why the battles you face often feel extreme. You aren't wrestling with petty opposition. You're facing forces that understand the weight of what you carry. They know that if you rise fully into your assignment, entire territories, families, and generations will be transformed. Losing you would be a win for them. That's why they fight so hard to derail you. But that's also why your protection is non-negotiable. They treat your existence as a matter of national security because it is. The truth is, your calling is considered sensitive material. If it fell into the wrong hands, if it were intercepted, silenced, the cost would ripple far beyond you. That's why you're guarded with a shield that leaves nothing to chance. The surveillance on your life isn't casual. It's enforcement. It says, this one is untouchable because what they carry is too critical to risk. And while it may feel heavy, it is in truth the greatest honor. It means you've been identified as someone whose very survival shifts the balance. You're not treated lightly because your assignment isn't light. Your life has been sealed, classified, marked as untouchable. When your existence is considered a matter of national importance, it is because your destiny isn't optional. It is essential. Sixth, protection isn't just defensive, it's preventative. Protection isn't just about putting out fires, it's so much more than that. So many people think being guarded means only being rescued when danger appears. But things work on a much higher level. You're not just pulled out of the fire, you're prevented from ever walking into most of them. What looks like a peaceful life is often the result of unseen battles being neutralized long before they even had the chance to touch you. Prevention is the highest form of protection because it renders the enemy's efforts pointless before they begin. That's why certain disasters you hear about never happened to you. It wasn't because you were smarter, more careful, or even luckier. It was because forces around you blocked the traps before you reached them. Attacks were canceled while you were sleeping, dangers uprooted while you were unaware, schemes dismantled before you even had to worry about them. Defensive protection saves you after contact. Preventative protection ensures contact never happens at all. This level of safeguarding proves you're operating under a strategy, not just chance. They don't wait until you're bleeding to respond. They work ahead of time. They anticipate, scan, intercept what you could never predict. For every storm you see, there are countless others you never encounter because they were stopped before they even formed. That's why you've survived more than you'll ever know. That's also why your protection may feel invisible. You don't always recognize the battles that never reached you. You only notice what you survived, not what was erased. The truth is, you've been preserved not just by interventions in crisis, but by countless preventions that saved you from ever facing certain crises. Understand this: your shield is more than a defense line. It's a proactive strategy. It doesn't just step in when you're attacked. It clears the battlefield before you arrive. That's why you're still standing. Your life is proof that prevention is valued over repair. Seventh, being guarded attracts envy. Being guarded makes you a target. People may not know the full details of your life, but they notice something about you that doesn't quite add up. They see certain disasters skipping over you, how you seem preserved through storms that swallow others, how attacks don't land the way they should. They start to assume you're just lucky or somehow favored. To them, the shield over your life looks like pure favoritism. But what they fail to realize is that the level of protection around you isn't luxury. It's an absolute necessity. What others call unfair is in reality simply survival. The truth is, if the shield around you were lowered even slightly, the weight of the threats aimed at your life would crush you. You're not guarded because you're fragile. You're guarded because what you carry is dangerous. The covering you have isn't pampering, it's survival. High command knows what's aimed at you even when no one else does, which is why your security looks excessive from the outside. Envy comes from people who misinterpret the signs. They see your protection but not your battles. They witness your preservation but not the scale of the weapons raised against you. They mistake your shield for privilege instead of realizing it's the only reason you're still here. That's why they whisper, compare, and sometimes resent the way things seem to fall in place for you, because they cannot see the cost of being chosen. This is where you must stand firm. Don't waste time explaining yourself to those who only see the shield, not the war. If they carried what you carry, they would require the same level of guarding. What they envy isn't luxury. It's evidence of how severe your calling is. Let them talk. Their misunderstanding doesn't change the truth. You're heavily watched because you're heavily targeted, and that is the clearest proof that your life is anything but ordinary. 8th, the shield sends a message. The shield over your life isn't silent, it speaks louder than any words could. Your protection isn't just about keeping you safe in secret. It's a deliberate broadcast to every hostile force watching you. It announces that touching you isn't an option, and crossing your boundary carries consequences that are activated automatically. You don't need to argue with your enemies. You don't need to defend yourself endlessly. The very presence of your shield settles the matter. That's the beauty of High Command's protection. It's both defense and declaration. It tells the opposition, this one is off limits. And the warning isn't empty. The shield isn't just symbolic, it's backed by force. Those who have tried to break through in the past have already learned the hard way that there are immediate costs to violating what has been marked untouchable. That's why some enemies pull back, why some attempts suddenly collapse, why certain plots dissolve without explanation. It's not random. It's the shield sending its message. Your enemies may never admit it, but they recognize the sign. They see how far they can push others, then notice they can't push you the same way. They see how traps catch many, yet somehow you keep slipping through untouched. Deep down, they know something else is at work. Even if they mock it outwardly, your life has become a living reminder that there are invisible lines drawn around you. Lines that, if crossed, carry a cost they cannot afford to pay. This is why your protection is non-negotiable. It's not merely for your comfort. It's a warning system built into your destiny. Every shield over your life says to the forces of darkness, attacking this one isn't a fight, it's a defeat. And that message keeps more enemies away than you'll ever realize. 9th, safety is enforced, not fragile. Safety isn't just a delicate hope. Your protection isn't some fragile bubble that could burst depending on how strong you feel, how perfect your day is, or how consistent your prayers sound. It is legislated at a level higher than you. That means your covering isn't held together by your emotions or your performance. It's rooted in a higher authority that doesn't bend to mood swings or circumstances. What has been decreed over your life is binding, and it cannot be negotiated by fear, doubt, or even the hostility of enemies. This is the mistake people often make. They treat divine protection like it's breakable, like one wrong step or one weak moment will leave them completely exposed. The truth is, your shield isn't temporary insurance. It's a standing order written and enforced. It is non-negotiable. It is law, and the enemy doesn't get to vote on it. When something is enforced, it's not optional. It's automatic. Just like a nation enforces its borders and laws without needing constant reminders, your protection operates as a permanent boundary around your life. This isn't to say you should live carelessly, but it's to remind you that your survival isn't balancing on thin glass. You're not safe because you're lucky. You're safe because it's been decreed. You're not preserved because you're flawless. You're preserved because your destiny is non-transferable. This enforcement also explains why certain attacks crumble before they begin. Some enemies miscalculate thinking your safety is fragile, but they quickly discover it's reinforced with consequences they didn't prepare for. The shield doesn't plead for your safety. It demands it. It doesn't negotiate. It governs. Understand this: your life is not being held together by fragile threads. You're covered by an authority that enforces protection as law. That's why no matter how unpredictable the chaos around you becomes, you remain untouchable, not because safety is weak, but because it is enforced with strength greater than any threat against you. 10th, you're guarded even from yourself. You're guarded even from yourself. Your protection isn't just about shielding you from outside enemies. It also covers you against the dangers you unknowingly create. Everyone has blind spots, moments of ignorance, or moments of recklessness where they could sabotage their own progress. They take those into account. You're not left vulnerable to your own mistakes because your destiny is too important to collapse under your human weaknesses. Think of the times you made choices that should have backfired badly but somehow didn't. The relationships you almost gave yourself to that would have destroyed your peace. The places you could have gone that would have set you back years. The words you nearly spoke that would have burned bridges you needed intact. You didn't escape those moments because you were wise. You escaped because you were covered. Protection stepped in where your maturity hadn't developed yet. This doesn't mean recklessness is encouraged, but it shows that your future isn't hanging by a thread of perfection. Knowing your flaws, your learning curve, and the areas you still struggle with your destiny is too critical to be left in your unsteady hands alone. You are guarded not just against the attacks of others, but against the premature destruction you could bring on yourself. That kind of grace is humbling. It reminds you that destiny is bigger than your flaws and your survival isn't tied to your perfection. You're still here because you are guarded not only from others but also from yourself. 11th, the shield is specifically customized. The shield over your life is tailored, not generic. This isn't some one-size-fits-all coverage. The eyes on you are precise, intentional, shaped around the exact design of your calling. They don't waste resources building unnecessary defenses, nor do they leave critical areas exposed. Your shield has been tailored to fit you, crafted to match the unique weight of your destiny and the specific threats assigned to stop it. That means your protection doesn't always look like someone else's. What covers you may not cover them, and what shields them may not apply to you. Some doors you can walk through easily while others can't, not because you're better, but because your protection was tailored for your route. Some dangers pass you by completely while others fall right into them because your shield is calibrated to intercept threats aimed directly at your assignment. It's not favoritism, it's a strategy. Enemies misunderstand this. They try to attack you with the same tactics they've used on others, expecting the same results. They fail because your covering isn't standard issue. It's built with your blueprint in mind. What pierced someone else won't pierce you. Not because you're untouchable in every way, but because your guard was specifically designed to block what was crafted for your downfall. That's why so many attempts against you collapse before they even gain traction. This is why you can't compare your journey to anyone else's. Your protection is tied to your purpose. If your assignment is different, your shield will look different too. They have studied not just your future, but also the exact shape of the resistance waiting for you there, and the coverage you've been given is the precise counter to that. Understand that you're not walking under just any protection. Your shield is customized. It has been tailor-made for your path, for your battles, and for your destiny. Every layer of it is proof that they know exactly what you carry and exactly what it will take to keep you standing. 12th, monitoring means you're in motion. Monitoring shows that you are in motion. No one wastes resources watching something that isn't going anywhere. A still target doesn't need surveillance because it poses no threat. It changes nothing. The very fact that you are under constant watch is proof you're not stagnant. You're moving. You're already on a trajectory towards something monumental, and both allies and enemies know it. This is why your life feels like it carries unusual pressure. You're being observed closely because your steps matter. Every decision you make ripples further than you realize. Every move you take shifts the map of your future, and the future's tied to you. You are not idling in obscurity, you're advancing, and advancement always attracts attention. Surveillance also reveals value. Think about it. Nobody monitors an empty warehouse, but they'll put cameras and alarms on a vault. The more precious what you're carrying, the more closely it will be tracked. The intensity of the watch on your life is the clearest confirmation that what you're heading toward is significant. They don't waste effort on pointless journeys. If the eyes on you are unrelenting, it's because your path is already carving into destiny. Enemies recognize this even if you don't. They don't bother watching people who will never move beyond average, but they keep tabs on you, waiting for opportunities, looking for ways to interfere because they sense you're moving towards something they can't afford to let succeed. Yet this is also why your protection is so heavy, because motion without a shield would make you vulnerable. Don't mistake monitoring for a burden, it's evidence. You're not stuck, you're not invisible. You're already progressing toward what was written for you, and that progress is too significant to be ignored. Constant watchfulness is not paranoia. It's proof that your journey has already begun and is headed somewhere monumental. 13th, enemies misread silence as weakness. Enemies mistake delay for vulnerability. They look at the silence around your life and mistake it for weakness, thinking nothing is happening and you're exposed. But what they don't realize is that the quiet isn't emptiness. It's surveillance mode. Every move they make, every plot they set in motion, every whisper they release is being logged, tracked, dismantled before it even launches. The pause isn't because you lack strength. It's because you are letting them reveal their entire hand before shutting them down. Delay is a strategy, not a liability. It creates the illusion of opportunity, luring them into overconfidence. They assume you're unguarded, but in truth, their schemes are already cataloged and disarmed in silence. That's why they're often shocked when nothing works. They thought they were striking a gap in your defenses, but what they were really doing was exposing their tactics under surveillance. By the time they move, the counter is already in place. Don't confuse divine delay with neglect. What looks like nothing happening is usually everything happening at once, just out of your sight. They are never late. Silence isn't absence, it's precision. The best defenses aren't rushed, they're calculated. Enemies don't realize that the longer they circle, the deeper the record of their actions becomes. The delay isn't weakness, it's building the weight of their own judgment. When you feel like you're waiting, understand that your stillness is not vulnerability, it's strategy. Your shield is active even when you don't see it, and the silence that confuses your enemies is what guarantees their defeat. Delay doesn't mean you've been abandoned. It means the timing of your defense is perfect, ensuring that when the counterstrike comes, it's final and undeniable. 14th, the eyes mean your future. The presence indicates there is a future. The protection surrounding your life isn't just about where you stand right now. It's about where you're headed. You're not heavily guarded because of your present position, but because of the weight of your trajectory. They see further than you do, and they know your future is too critical to be left vulnerable. That's why you feel preserved in ways that don't make sense for your current stage. It's not about now. It's about what's coming. This is the mistake many observers make. They look at your life in the present and wonder why the level of covering seems too much for what you're doing. They don't realize the shield isn't sized for today. It's scaled for tomorrow. The protection matches the level of destiny you're walking into, not the level of activity you're currently managing. You're being guarded as though you've already arrived, because in truth, you already have. That's why some attacks against you feel exaggerated, even when you think you haven't done enough to deserve that level of resistance. It's because the enemy isn't fighting your present, they're fighting your future. They see the trajectory you're on, and they know that if you're left unguarded, you'll grow into someone impossible to stop. Your shield exists to ensure their fear becomes reality. This also means you must stop underestimating yourself. If the coverage around you feels excessive, it's because your assignment is excessive. If the eyes on you feel unrelenting, it's because your destiny is momentous. Nothing about your protection is wasted. It's evidence of how much your future matters. Don't measure your worth by where you are right now. Measure it by the weight of the shield around you. The eyes tracking your steps are the clearest confirmation that your life has already been factored into the future. Your destiny is strategic, costly, and essential. That is why you are protected beyond measure, not for today, but for what's waiting ahead. One truth becomes undeniable. Your life is beyond extraordinary. It is protected. Every shield, every layer of surveillance, every interception of unseen danger is evidence that you're not just passing through existence. You're carrying something essential. High command does not waste resources. If you are heavily guarded, it's because you're heavily needed. Your destiny is treated like classified intel. Too costly to lose, too strategic to leave unprotected. This protection isn't fragile, random, or generic. It is precise, tailored, and enforced. It shields you not only from enemies but also from yourself, from blind spots you couldn't see and battles you couldn't fight. It speaks loudly to hostile forces, declaring that touching you is not a fight worth taking. It silences the idea of coincidence and replaces it with proof that preservation is policy. The eyes on you aren't a burden. They're the clearest sign that your life is moving towards something monumental. You're not watched because you're weak. You're watched because your future carries too much weight to fail. Every delay, every silence, every reroute is strategy, not neglect. The surveillance is not paranoia. It's proof that your destiny has already been secured at a higher level. Walk boldly under the shield. Stop underestimating the covering on your life. You're not fragile, you are protected. You are not overlooked, you are strategic. And no matter what rises against you, your protection is non-negotiable because they have decided you're too important to be lost. Be lost. Be lost. Be lost. Be lost. Welcome, chosen ones. They dared to pilfer from destiny itself, believing they could escape unscathed. Imagine someone reaching into the core of your being, seizing what was intrinsically yours and smirking as if it were an ordinary occurrence. But brace yourselves for a chilling revelation. A staggering 82% of financial fraud and inheritance theft cases unravel within the first year when whispers from within begin to surface. In other words, what seems eternally buried possesses an uncanny ability to resurface, often accompanied by witnesses you least anticipate. Now envision this scenario: the very individuals who gloated, conspired, and prematurely counted your inheritance as their own are now jolted awake at ungodly hours, drenched in sweat, frantically scrolling through messages, consumed by the paranoia of who will expose them next. That's the sound of justice knocking with unwavering resolve, its spotlight so blindingly intense that it obliterates their carefully constructed facade of lies. And here's the electrifying twist: you are not merely a spectator to this unfolding drama. You are the protagonist, the very fulcrum upon which this epic tale pivots. Each lie they meticulously planted, every secret they considered impenetrable, is now disintegrating in real time, revealing the stark truth beneath. The whistleblower isn't just a symbol of courage. They are the linchpin, the domino that triggers the catastrophic collapse of an empire built upon your stolen birthright. So prepare yourself, because what they plundered was far more than mere money. It was your legacy, your birthright, and now the very individuals who attempted to play puppet master over your life are about to receive a harsh, unforgettable lesson in the cosmic theater of justice. The universe possesses an unyielding memory. It simply bides its time, and yes, sometimes it delights in subtly mocking their hubris while setting the stage for their downfall. This is not a tale of petty vengeance. It is a narrative of inevitable justice, explosive revelations, and the unstoppable return of what is rightfully and intrinsically yours. First, their panic is your victory anthem. Their panic is not arbitrary. It's a resonating signal of truth breaking through the surface. When individuals resort to theft, manipulation, or usurpation, they carry an invisible, ever-present burden: the weight of their transgression. Regardless of the elaborate defenses they construct, the intricate lies they weave, or the people they attempt to silence through bribery, guilt inevitably finds a way to permeate the cracks. And now, as the whistleblower fearlessly steps forward, illuminating the stolen inheritance, that intangible weight becomes undeniably visible. Each anxious phone call they make, every sleepless night they endure, every hurried explanation they stammer is a palpable manifestation of the mounting pressure they face. This stress transcends mere discomfort. It's the reverberating echo of their crime finally catching up with them. Their anxieties extend beyond mere reputational damage. They are gripped by the existential dread of losing control over the elaborate web of deceit they've meticulously crafted. Their panic reveals vulnerabilities far deeper than fear. It exposes the fissures in their once impenetrable armor. Their anxiety is a direct reflection of the shifting power dynamics. They once held the upper hand, manipulating information and orchestrating outcomes from behind the scenes. But with the emergence of truth, that power abruptly dissipates. What they believed to be untouchable is suddenly exposed and vulnerable. The panic you witness is concrete evidence that the tide has turned. It's undeniable proof that their meticulously crafted schemes are unraveling in real time. It's a reaction that validates your position, your inherent rights, and your undeniable legitimacy. They are consumed by anxiety because they are beginning to grasp, perhaps for the first time, that they are no longer the masters of their destiny. That's the defining essence of this pivotal moment. Their panic transcends mere emotional turmoil. It's a factual acknowledgement. The exposure of your stolen inheritance ignites a chain of events that spiral beyond their control, and their dread serves as irrefutable proof that the truth is an unstoppable force. The irony is both profound and brutal. They brazenly assumed their deception could endure indefinitely. They confidently believed their ill-gotten advantage was permanent. Now their panic serves as both undeniable evidence and a perverse form of entertainment, revealing just how fragile their position was all along. They are unequivocally losing, and deep down they are acutely aware of it. Their stress is the universe's way of unequivocally confirming that justice isn't merely on its way. It is already unfolding with relentless force. Every frantic move, every hurried lie, every agonizing sleepless hour only serves to accelerate their inevitable reckoning. Their panic is not merely an emotional response. It's a resounding confirmation that what intrinsically belongs to you is inexorably returning. Their fear is irrefutable evidence that stolen goods cannot remain stolen forever, and that the moment of truth is not only approaching, it is now unavoidable. Second, secrets leak. Lies dissipate. Secrets possess an inherent inability to remain buried indefinitely, and lies are destined to crumble under the weight of truth. What they considered to be meticulously concealed, the theft of your inheritance, the manipulative tactics employed, the falsified records they generated, was never as undetectable as they naively believed. Every action they undertook left behind a tangible trail, whether in the form of incriminating emails, traceable bank transfers, careless remarks made in casual conversations, or simple avoidable mistakes. These are the breadcrumbs that form a clear path leading directly back to them, and the whistleblower serves as the unwavering individual who is finally following that trail with unwavering focus and clear vision. The exposure is not a random act of courage. It is the inevitable consequence of a corrupt system fundamentally built on deception. truth possesses an uncanny ability to find someone willing to articulate it, and the more vehemently they attempt to suppress it, the more resoundingly it will be proclaimed. What they initially perceived as their greatest advantage, their carefully guarded secret leverage, has now transformed into their most significant weakness. Every clandestine transaction, every calculated attempt to manipulate outcomes, every lie told to conceal a previous lie now exists in plain sight, accessible to anyone willing to confront it head-on. The whistleblower is not the creator of the problem. They are merely the catalyst that reveals its pre-existing presence. What's truly astonishing is that the documents, the recordings, the irrefutable evidence, and the subtle inconsistencies they so readily dismissed are now speaking with a deafening volume that drowns out any attempt at denial. Even those who were previously too intimidated or too driven by greed to take action are now becoming reluctant witnesses to the unfolding truth. The secrecy upon which they relied so heavily collapses the instant someone resolutely refuses to remain silent. The impact is both immediate and deeply psychological. They are being relentlessly watched, meticulously analyzed, and exposed in ways they never remotely imagined. Their carefully constructed comfort zones are shattered beyond repair, and the stress of exposure intensifies because the truth possesses an objective and unyielding nature. It cannot be negotiated, ignored, or indefinitely suppressed. Every attempt to conceal the theft only serves to provide further proof of its occurrence. Every panic-driven move they make becomes an integral part of the incriminating pattern that exposes them even further. The whistleblower not only reveals the crime itself, they illuminate the intricate system of lies, the network of complicity, and the elaborate methods they employed to manipulate reality itself. At its core, this is a moment of profound reckoning. The stolen inheritance represented far more than mere monetary gain. It was a symbol of control dominance and an assumption of unchallenged impunity. The exposure forces them to confront not only their deplorable actions, but also the inevitability of facing the consequences. Secrets do not leak because people are weak. They leak because truth is an unrelenting force. And in this case, the truth has found its voice, its witness, and its perfect timing. A confluence that no amount of scheming or manipulation can possibly resist. Their carefully constructed illusion is unraveling with alarming speed, and the whistleblower is merely the initial spark that ignited the inevitable conflagration. The true fire is the unwavering presence of truth asserting its rightful place, and nothing they do now can extinguish it. Third, blinded by cupidity. Their insatiable greed was precisely the force that blinded them to the ramifications of their actions. They arrogantly assumed that appropriating what was not rightfully theirs could be achieved without any adverse consequences, that their wealth and influence would somehow shield them from the natural repercussions of stealing from someone else's life. They desperately clung to the self-serving delusion that their clever planning, well-placed connections, and intimidating tactics were sufficient to secure their coveted prize. However, greed is never a silent, passive force. It relentlessly grows, insatiably consumes, and severely impairs judgment. Every decision they made while relentlessly pursuing what was never theirs was invariably guided by a warped and distorted sense of entitlement. They flagrantly disregarded the inherent risks involved, grossly underestimated the people around them, and convinced themselves that they were untouchable and beyond reproach. That very overconfidence born from their unbridled, selfish desires is precisely what has led them down the path to their impending downfall. The irony is both stark and brutal. The very hunger that drove them to steal from you is now the primary source of their paralyzing fear. They meticulously constructed their schemes believing they were firmly in control. But control is ultimately an illusion when your actions are fundamentally rooted in selfishness and a callous disregard for the truth. Greed does not merely motivate people to steal. It renders them careless, arrogant, and disturbingly predictable. Every corner they cut, every false signature they forged, every attempt they made to manipulate witnesses became another blatant marker on a trail leading inexorably back to them. They foolishly believed that the shadows provided them with adequate protection. But the more vigorously they attempted to conceal their actions, the more glaringly obvious their patterns became. Their current state of panic is a direct result of the same insatiable desire that once emboldened them to commit their transgressions. Greed also inherently distorts perspective. They measured success solely by the accumulation of wealth, rather than the attainment of justice, prioritizing personal advantage over fairness and equity. This profound distortion rendered them oblivious to the warning signs that surrounded them, blinding them to the inevitability of their eventual exposure. They operated under the delusion that their theft could exist without any repercussions because their vision was clouded by the allure of immediate gratification. Every choice they made was calculated to benefit themselves at the expense of what was morally right. And each selfish maneuver has now amplified the severity of the consequences they are poised to face. What they naively believed to be clever manipulation is now irrefutable evidence of their wrongdoing, and their abject stress is a clear indication that they recognize this truth even if they realize it's too late to avert the impending disaster. Ultimately, their greed was never merely a moral failing. It was also a significant strategic weakness. It dictated their every move, created predictable patterns in their behavior, and ensured that anyone paying close attention would inevitably take notice of their transgressions. It virtually guaranteed their eventual exposure. What they mistakenly perceived as unshakable security ultimately became their greatest vulnerability. The irony is incredibly sharp. Their consuming desire to possess what was not rightfully theirs is precisely what is now forcing them to helplessly watch as it returns to the person they so callously attempted to steal from. Greed promised them unparalleled wealth and absolute control, but it has instead delivered crippling anxiety, paralyzing fear, and eventual inevitable defeat. Their panic is not merely an emotional response. It is undeniable proof that desire devoid of integrity will always ultimately backfire. Fourth, the whistleblower catalyst. Not hero. The whistleblower should not be regarded as the hero of this story. They are in fact the catalyst. While their actions are undeniably significant, they represent merely the starting point of a process that was inherently inevitable from the outset. Justice possesses its own inherent momentum, and no amount of manipulation, intimidation, or bribery can ultimately halt its progress once the truth has begun to emerge into the light. The whistleblower's courage and action serve merely as the spark that ignites a fire that was already lying dormant, waiting to be kindled. Every lie that was told, every asset that was stolen, every attempt that was made to conceal the theft has been meticulously recorded within the very fabric of reality itself. And once the spark makes contact, the ensuing chain reaction becomes entirely unstoppable. What unfolds following the whistleblower's revelation is not chaos. It is destiny simply asserting itself. Those who attempted to manipulate, steal, and deceive find themselves utterly powerless against a force that is impervious to negotiation and impervious to compromise. Their carefully crafted schemes crumble not solely because of the bravery exhibited by a single individual, but because the timing, the surrounding circumstances, and the weight of evidence were all aligned to restore what was wrongfully taken. The whistleblower may serve to ignite the initial spark, but the ensuing fire is fundamentally built upon the bedrock of truth, predictable patterns, and the immutable law of cause and consequence. The stolen inheritance, the legacy that was denied to you, and the rights that were so brazenly violated were never truly lost. They were simply awaiting the opportune moment for the universe to self-correct and restore the inherent balance. This pivotal moment serves to expose the illusion of control upon which the wrongdoers so heavily relied. They acted as if their actions were permanent and unassailable, as if their influence could erase all traces of their wrongdoing. Now they are forced to confront the stark reality that no human intervention can ultimately impede the inevitable flow of justice. The whistleblower triggers the initial exposure, but the ultimate collapse of their nefarious schemes is predetermined by the very sequence of reality itself. Truth acts as a fundamental force akin to gravity. It is ultimately unavoidable, and everything built upon falsehoods will inevitably succumb to its undeniable weight. The central lesson to be learned is clear. The primary focus should never be solely directed at the individual who exposes the crime, but rather on the unstoppable unfolding of justice. The whistleblower is undeniably vital, but they are not the sole source of power. The underlying force behind the exposure is far greater and more profound. What they reveal is merely the initial indication that a corrupt system of lies, manipulation, and theft cannot ultimately endure. Once the spark has ignited the flame, the momentum of truth takes over, and what was wrongfully stolen will inevitably be returned to its rightful owner. Fear, deceit, and bribery are all powerless against this force. Destiny, impeccable timing, and inevitability carry the true weight, and the whistleblower is simply the instrument that sets this entire process into motion. The fire has now begun to blaze, and nothing can extinguish it. Fifth, records implicate. Every document, every financial transaction, every carefully concealed note they believed would remain forever unseen now speaks with a resounding volume that far surpasses the impact of their carefully chosen words. The spreadsheets, meticulously balanced accounts, forged signatures, and altered records are far more than mere pieces of evidence. They serve as reverberating echoes of their profound guilt, echoes that resolutely refuse to remain silent. They carry within them the detailed narrative of every injustice committed, every act of manipulation perpetrated, and every stolen piece of what was rightfully and undeniably yours. No amount of fear-mongering, bribery, or intimidation can ever fully erase these indelible traces. What they naively believed to be secure and invisible now possesses a voice of its own, relentlessly exposing the full scope of what they desperately attempted to conceal from the world. Each piece of evidence serves as a mirror, accurately reflecting their true actions and exposing the depths of their depravity. The patterns they believed were clever, the inconsistencies they conveniently ignored, and the shortcuts they recklessly took all stand as irrefutable proof that their control was never as absolute as they imagined. Every entry in a ledger, every signed document, every suspicious transfer resonates with the undeniable truth. Even the most minute detail, once carelessly overlooked, now transforms into a crucial clue that contributes to a comprehensive understanding of the bigger picture. The weight of their guilt is not merely a moral burden, it has far-reaching practical implications. It directly impacts their decision-making processes, disrupts their sleep patterns, and erodes their ability to effectively manipulate the narrative any longer. The sheer brilliance of this lies in its inherent inevitability. Paper trails and digital records are incapable of falsehood, and no one possesses the power to completely rewrite history. The moment someone decides to take a closer look, the whistleblower, the dedicated investigators, or even a keen observer with a discerning eye, these dormant echoes of guilt amplify and align, ultimately revealing the full and unvarnished extent of the theft and manipulation that occurred. Every attempt they made to cover up the truth only serves to amplify its clarity and intensify its impact. Their panic-stricken responses, their defensively motivated maneuvers, and their feeble excuses now all serve to confirm what these incriminating documents have already unequivocally demonstrated. Ultimately, this is the primary reason why their ill-gotten advantage is so rapidly collapsing around them. What they so desperately attempted to bury is not buried at all. The evidence is not merely telling the story, it is actively demanding recognition and accountability. Each transaction and each signature acts as a persistent reminder that wrongdoing invariably leaves an indelible mark. The more desperately they struggle to conceal their actions, the louder the echoes of their guilt become, resonating for all to witness and hear. Their guilt is no longer a private internal burden. It has become tangible, undeniable, and readily apparent to everyone. These documents are not just proof. They are the very voice of justice itself, and they are relentless in their pursuit of reclaiming what rightfully belongs to you. Sixth, alliances crumble. Their networks are disintegrating quietly, but the impact of this silent collapse is undeniably profound. The individuals who once enabled their actions, applauded their illicit schemes, or conveniently turned a blind eye to the theft are now experiencing tremors of unease that they cannot afford to ignore. Fear is permeating every corner of their carefully cultivated alliances, and the loyalty that was once based solely on conditional benefits or a fear of being excluded is rapidly evaporating. The connections they relied upon to maintain control, protect their interests, or cover their tracks are weakening under the immense pressure of inevitable exposure. What was previously a seemingly impenetrable fortress built upon complicity and mutual self-interest is now developing significant cracks from within. Every ally who remained solely for the sake of convenience, financial gain, or a fear of missing out on the potential rewards is now critically reevaluating their position and considering the potential ramifications of their continued association. Those relationships that once appeared to be rock solid and unwavering are now undergoing a perceptible shift as the potential costs of maintaining those ties begin to outweigh any perceived benefits they may have previously provided. People begin to subtly distance themselves at first, then more openly and demonstrably as time progresses. Opportunistic alliances fracture and dissolve. Silence gradually transforms into hushed whispers, and what was once a supportive network morphs into a collection of isolated individuals desperately attempting to salvage their own reputations and minimize their personal exposure. The fear of being implicated or dragged down into the ensuing fallout overrides any vestige of loyalty they may have once possessed. This collapse is not merely a social phenomenon, it also has significant strategic implications. Their ability to manipulate events, intimidate potential dissenters, or control the outcomes of various situations relied heavily on the strength and coordinated efforts of their expansive network. Now, with cracks appearing and allies withdrawing their support, their power is diminishing at an alarming rate. Every misstep they make becomes increasingly visible, and every lie they utter becomes more vulnerable to exposure. What they once believed to be a source of unwavering protection now serves to expose them even further, amplifying the consequences of their deplorable actions. The domino effect that results from this internal collapse is unrelenting and unstoppable. One person withdraws their support, another hesitates to commit further, and yet another decides to speak out against the wrongdoing they have witnessed, and the ensuing chain reaction accelerates exponentially. The pressure they face is not solely external. It also carries a karmic element. The universe possesses a remarkable capacity for balancing actions and ensuring that justice prevails, and the very networks they meticulously constructed to secure their advantage are now turning against them with an almost poetic sense of irony. What once served as a shield now functions as a mirror, reflecting their abject failure and magnifying their vulnerabilities for all to see. In the end, the collapse of their network serves as undeniable proof that no system built upon deceit, greed, and exploitation can ultimately endure the test of time. Allies will inevitably betray them. Supporters will vanish without a trace, and opportunistic individuals will exploit the weakening structure for their own personal gain. The very silence in which this collapse unfolds makes it even more devastatingly powerful, because while they desperately scramble to maintain control and salvage what remains of their schemes, the unraveling occurs in plain sight, proceeding with an unstoppable force and a merciless disregard for their desperate attempts to regain their footing. The network that once bolstered their theft and shielded them from accountability now ensures their ultimate exposure, leaving them isolated, fearful, and utterly powerless to prevent their impending downfall. Seventh, anxiety defined their existence. Anxiety has become their new form of currency, a currency they never anticipated spending so recklessly and profusely. every decision they made to steal what was not rightfully theirs, every unethical shortcut they took to gain a temporary advantage over others exacted a toll on their own peace of mind and inner tranquility. They mistakenly believed that absolute control and calculated manipulation would guarantee their long-term success. But what they failed to comprehend is that the weight of wrongdoing accumulates over time, compounding with each subsequent transgression. Now, with their exposure seemingly inevitable and a courageous whistleblower poised to reveal the truth to the world, the true cost of their actions has arrived in full force, demanding to be paid. Every lie they meticulously crafted, every elaborate scheme they orchestrated, now represents a debt they are utterly incapable of repaying, and the interest accruing on that debt is the constant gnawing anxiety that refuses to cease its relentless torment. This debilitating anxiety does not remain hidden from view. It manifests itself in every meeting they attend, permeates every conversation they attempt to dominate, and influences every decision they make under duress. The stolen inheritance is no longer a cherished trophy to be proudly displayed or a source of unbridled advantage to be exploited at will. It has instead transformed into a dark and menacing shadow that follows them relentlessly, a constant reminder of their transgressions. Each step they take is haunted by the paralyzing fear of being caught, subjected to intense questioning, and publicly exposed for their deplorable actions. The illusionary power they assumed they possessed is rapidly evaporating, replaced by a constant state of worry, perpetual second-guessing, and interminable sleepless nights. Their minds, once brimming with confidence in their elaborate schemes, are now consumed by the very actions they believed would secure their ultimate triumph. The irony of this situation is as profound as it is unavoidable. What they valued above all else, the pursuit of temporary gain, the exploitation of stolen advantages, and the exertion of absolute control over your life, is precisely what is now actively destroying them from within. Anxiety has become their dominant form of currency, dictating their every reaction, influencing every choice they make, and shaping every interaction they undertake. It is a debilitating cost they can neither transfer to another party, escape from its clutches, nor successfully conceal from the watchful eyes of the world. The market of their lives has crashed spectacularly, and the only commodity they are currently trading is abject stress and paralyzing fear. Even their desperate attempts to regain control and salvage their reputations only serve to intensify the mounting pressure they face. Every calculated move they make to cover up the truth, justify their actions, or distract attention away from their wrongdoing only reinforces the weight of their past transgressions. The stolen inheritance, once viewed as a symbol of their power and dominance, now functions as a constant reminder of their inherent vulnerability, their profound guilt, and their impending inevitable exposure. In the end, they are forced to confront the harsh reality that no fleeting advantage is worth the constant and crippling price of unrelenting anxiety, and that the very thing they sought to claim as their own is now the very thing that exerts complete and utter control over their lives. Every waking moment has become a transaction conducted in the currency of fear, and it is a currency that can never be spent wisely or judiciously. Eighth justice will prevail. The universe possesses an unyielding memory that no human force can ever fully erase, and it never forgets what rightfully belongs to you. A stolen birthright, whether it encompasses tangible wealth, powerful influence, or a lasting legacy, carries with it an invisible pull that draws it inexorably back to its true owner. It matters not how sophisticated the theft was, how meticulously they attempted to conceal their actions, or how many layers of lies and manipulations they carefully constructed to disguise the truth. Every attempt to divert, conceal, or falsely claim what was never rightfully theirs only serves to delay the inevitable moment of its return. Resistance is ultimately futile because the underlying force that governs balance and ensures the triumph of justice operates entirely independently of human schemes and manipulations. What they wrongfully took from you possesses a natural and inherent alignment to you. Birthrights are not merely material possessions. They represent extensions of your destiny, your identity, and your unique purpose in the world. When someone attempts to intercept or usurp them, they disrupt the delicate balance of the universe, creating an imbalance that the universe will inevitably correct. The stolen inheritance, the legacy they attempted to claim as their own, can never be truly possessed by those who have no legitimate claim to it. It is magnetically drawn back to the one to whom it inherently belongs, much like a compass needle, unfailingly returning to the north, or water unerringly finding its level. Every action they take to hold on to it, every elaborate strategy they implement to avoid accountability for their transgressions, only serves to accelerate the inevitable process of its return. The consequences of attempting to resist this natural correction are ultimately unavoidable. They may temporarily delay the exposure of their actions, manipulate public perception to their advantage, or intimidate others into remaining silent. But these measures are merely temporary and ultimately ineffective against the inexorable forces of the universe. The universe does not operate on temporary measures or fleeting illusions. It responds to the essence of things, to rightful claims, and to the immutable power of truth. The stolen birthright generates a gravitational pull that is far stronger than any manifestation of fear, any act of bribery, or any carefully constructed deception. They may delude themselves into believing they are in control for a brief period of time, but the underlying alignment towards restoration and the re-establishment of balance remains constant, inevitable, and utterly unstoppable. This fundamental principle is not merely an abstract concept. It is readily observable in countless instances throughout history. The annals of human history are replete with cases in which individuals attempted to hijack what was not rightfully theirs, only to witness its eventual return to its rightful owner in ways that were undeniable, widely publicized, and irreversible. Attempts to resist the rightful flow of destiny only create friction, amplify stress, and ultimately lead to complete and utter collapse. The universe's correction does not require the presence of witnesses, the intervention of lawyers, or the enforcement of human authorities. It simply unfolds according to its own immutable laws. What was wrongfully stolen will inevitably find its way back home, because the very fabric of existence is meticulously designed to restore balance and ensure that justice ultimately prevails. So to bring it all together, the core message here is one of hope and ultimate justice. It's about recognizing that even when it feels like everything has been stolen and darkness has prevailed, the truth has an incredible power to resurface. Alliances built on lies will crumble, and what is rightfully yours will find its way back to you. Remember, their anxiety is a testament to the justice unfolding. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Have you seen examples of this in your own life, or perhaps in the news? What resonates most with you? Leave a comment below and let's start a conversation. And if you found this insightful, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future discussions about reclaiming your power and the inevitable triumph of justice. We've got a lot more to explore together. Explore together. Explore together. Explore together. Explore together. Welcome you who are marked for greatness. When jackals conspire to tear down a lion, they conveniently forget one thing: lions are not made in the image of lambs. What if I told you that the very cabal that schemed against you, the self-appointed arbiters of your fate who gathered in darkened rooms to orchestrate your downfall, have just received news that strikes at the very core of their being? Not the polite kind delivered on embossed stationery, but the raw, visceral kind that ignites panic, fractures alliances, and stains the eyes with a desperate knowing. Their meticulously crafted offensive, masquerading as a spiritual cleansing, did not merely falter. It recoiled upon them with a force they could never have conceived. Let's consider this historical truth. Every kingdom built upon the shifting sands of lies is destined to crumble faster than the echoes of the truth it sought to extinguish. The Roman Empire attempted to bury the undeniable truth of Christ's resurrection beneath a mountain of fabricated narratives. The accusers of Salem, blinded by fear and fueled by malice, condemned innocent souls as witches, until the very hysteria they fomented consumed them whole. Enemies drunk on their own perceived power consistently overlook a fundamental law of the universe. When you launch an unprovoked assault against the innocent, you are not simply contending with flesh and blood. You are defying the very immutable principles of justice itself. And let's face it, shall we? Your adversaries likely envisioned themselves as the architects of some malevolent symphony, a clandestine order whispering incantations, meticulously charting your demise. But here's the gut-wrenching reality they now confront. You were not a passive victim in their meticulously crafted script. You were the seismic plot twist that shattered their narrative beyond repair. So brace yourself for the unfolding drama. The very individuals who believed they had you trapped are now desperately scrambling to comprehend how you emerged unscathed, radiating an aura of invincibility. Their devastating news is not merely that you endured, it is that you transcended their machinations, operating on a plane of existence that defies their comprehension. They wielded trickery, but you commanded truth. They amassed numbers, but you cultivated discernment. They embraced hate, but you aligned with destiny. And the exquisite irony, they imagined they were exposing your weaknesses, but all they accomplished was a stark revelation of their own depravity. First, they plotted against the visible realm, but you responded from the unseen. They directed their attacks toward your physical form, your tangible assets, but you answered with the unwavering strength of the spirit. That is the reason for their utter desolation. When individuals scheme against you, they invariably underestimate the profound force that safeguards you. They fixate on the superficial, the readily apparent: your reputation, your financial standing, your relationships, your professional avenues. They operate under the flawed assumption that by severing a connection here or undermining an opportunity there, they can dismantle you piece by piece. But what they fundamentally fail to grasp is that your foundation is not anchored in the ephemeral realm of the visible. Your strength does not derive from the fickle approval of humanity or the fleeting nature of material success. You stand upon an unyielding bedrock that transcends their reach, the invincible power of the spirit. This truth lies at the heart of their agonizing frustration. They exerted every ounce of their limited human power to obliterate you. They circulated venomous gossip, desperately hoping to tarnish your image beyond repair. They manipulated circumstances, naively believing they could irrevocably sever your access to opportunity. They attempted to isolate you, anticipating that loneliness would shatter your resolve. But every assault struck only at the superficial layers of your being, failing to penetrate the core of who you truly are. They were playing the wrong game from the very beginning. Here's an undeniable truth. Deliberate attacks are impotent when the target is connected with a higher plane of awareness. While they were wielding the crude instruments of control, fear, and deceit, you were navigating the world with the refined tools of wisdom, intuition, and a divinely bestowed protection. That explains why their weapons, though seemingly sharp, ultimately proved dull and ineffective. They anticipated panic, retaliation, or at the very least a perceptible wavering. Instead, you moved with a serene composure that defied their interpretations. And nothing instills more terror in an adversary than the realization that their most potent moves have failed to elicit even the slightest flinch. What further exacerbates their agony is this irrefutable fact: every single one of their attacks generated unforeseen and profoundly detrimental side effects. While they were targeting your physical being, those very trials and tribulations were forging your spirit into an instrument of unparalleled sharpness. What they intended to weaken you became the crucible in which your strength was refined. You cultivated heightened discernment, deepened your commitment to prayer, and embraced unwavering discipline. Their malice served as a spiritual gymnasium, fortifying muscles you were not even aware you possessed. And now they languish in stunned disbelief as the devastating realization dawns upon them that what they so desperately attempted to shatter has only rendered you more resilient. Their strategy was fundamentally flawed, rooted in the carnal realm. And you cannot defeat an opponent whose source of power transcends the limitations of the physical. That is why their inner circle is consumed by a gnawing restlessness. They have finally recognized that you were not merely surviving. You were strategically outmaneuvering them on a spiritual level every step of the way. Second, their onslaught was predicated on an obsolete version of you, not the evolved being you have become. Their attacks were launched against a phantom of your former self, and that is where they lost the war before the first shot was even fired. Enemies consistently rely on outdated intelligence. They cling to memories of who you once were, perhaps unguarded, possibly insecure, perhaps excessively trusting, and they mistakenly assume that you remain trapped in that former state. Their strategies were constructed upon the brittle foundation of your past vulnerabilities. They counted on you reacting in predictable patterns, falling into the same traps that ensnared you before, or succumbing to the same pressures that once brought you to your knees. But the most shocking revelation they now face is this: the version of you they sought to destroy no longer exists. That is why they cannot comprehend why their attacks failed to land. They believed that the same lies that worked in the past would retain their potency. They thought that the same manipulations that once tripped you up would still throw you off balance. They failed to account for your profound personal growth, for the transformative power of your trials, your heartaches and your losses, which have sculpted you into someone they have never encountered before. You are no longer competing on the same playing field, and that realization fuels their deepest nightmares. They are futilely battling a ghost, while the authentic you has ascended to a realm far beyond their reach. It is akin to someone attempting to unlock a high-security vault with a key that no longer corresponds to the intricate locking mechanism. They persist in turning it, forcing it, growing increasingly frustrated with each failed attempt. But the tumblers have irrevocably changed, and the harder they push, the more glaringly obvious it becomes that they no longer possess access. That is the agonizing frustration that now consumes them. They are incapable of deciphering the reasons for their tactical failures, and instead of accepting that you have undergone a profound metamorphosis, they are engaging in bitter recriminations, blaming each other for the spectacular collapse of their carefully laid plans. The truth is that personal transformation is the ultimate defense. You did not merely survive, you evolved into someone unrecognizable to the obsolete strategies of your past. They meticulously calculated your perceived weaknesses, but they utterly failed to factor in your profound healing. They placed their bets on your lingering fears, but they did not anticipate your unwavering courage. They relied on your past silence, but they never imagined the emergence of your profound wisdom. And so while they remain trapped playing checkers on a board of yesterday, you are already mastering the complex strategies of chess in a vast and uncharted arena. That is the devastating news they have received. Their intended victim no longer exists. They targeted who you were, but who you are now is utterly untouchable. And that epiphany has left them paralyzed with shock, because nothing inflicts more pain upon a hater than the realization that they have been squandering their precious time battling a mere shadow. Third, the more they sought to bind you, the more you unlocked previously dormant gifts. Every attempt they made to spiritually confine you paradoxically triggered the emergence of hidden talents you were not even aware you possessed. That is the kind of unexpected twist that shattered their carefully constructed plans. They believed that their curses, their lies, their calculated manipulations would suffocate your spirit, leaving you gasping for air. But instead, those very pressures ignited dormant strengths buried deep within the recesses of your being. It is the paradoxical nature of being chosen for a purpose greater than oneself. What was maliciously intended to crush you ultimately becomes the very catalyst that elevates you to unimaginable heights. When individuals unleash attacks of a spiritual nature, they anticipate widespread destruction. They anticipate confusion, weakness, and despair to overwhelm their chosen target. But in your specific case, the very opposite occurred. Their malevolent energy forced you to delve deeper into your inner reserves, to draw upon reservoirs of power that you might never have accessed without the crucible of that intense resistance. You cultivated new and more effective methods of prayer. You learned to perceive the world with heightened awareness. You became more astute, more discerning, and significantly more difficult to access. They erroneously believed they were constructing a prison, but in reality they were inadvertently thrusting you into a rigorous training ground that unlocked levels of discernment and resilience they could never hope to rival. That is what ignites their seething rage. They confidently predicted that their efforts would mark the beginning of your irreversible decline. But instead, those very efforts served as a fiery furnace refining the pure gold within you. The more they attempted to confine you, the more your spirit expanded, breaking free from every self-imposed limitation. The more they sought to diminish your radiance, the brighter your inner light shone, illuminating the darkness that surrounded them. And the cruel irony for them is that they unwittingly became the architects of your profound transformation without ever intending to do so. They inadvertently contributed to your spiritual awakening. It is one of life's immutable laws. Pressure inevitably reveals what lies hidden beneath the surface. They applied pressure upon you, fully expecting you to shatter into countless pieces, but the pressure only revealed the extraordinary strength that resided within. They attempted to bind you with the chains of fear, but fear in turn unlocked the boundless potential of your courage. They sought to drown you in a sea of confusion, but confusion unlocked the path to crystal clear clarity. They attempted to bury you beneath the crushing weight of shame, but shame unlocked the doors to unwavering self-respect. Every chain they forged ultimately transformed into a key. Now they are left staring at you in utter disbelief. You emerged from the ordeal not merely unharmed, but imbued with extraordinary gifts that rendered you even more untouchable, and the most agonizing aspect for them is knowing that the very attacks they so meticulously invested in became the stepping stones that propelled you to unprecedented heights. They desired to render you powerless, but they inadvertently became the reason you discovered the true extent of your own inherent power. Fourth, they never considered that your survival would stand as irrefutable evidence of their utter defeat. They never once entertained the possibility that your continued existence would serve as the ultimate indictment of their failure. Every meticulously crafted plan they devised, every venomous word they whispered, every calculated move they attempted to execute against you was fundamentally designed to make you vanish, to silence your voice, to erase your presence from their meticulously constructed world. They confidently anticipated that you would bend, break, or flee in terrified retreat, erroneously assuming that their attacks would leave indelible marks that they could gleefully measure and display. But the harsh and undeniable truth they are now forced to confront is that none of it worked. You are not merely surviving, you are unequivocally thriving. Your survival serves as a glaring spotlight, illuminating their impotence, a stark reminder that all their meticulously crafted schemes were ultimately built upon a foundation of weakness masquerading as strength. What makes this even more humiliating for them is the undeniable fact that their weapons were never real. Their curses, their manipulations, their carefully constructed lies possessed only the illusion of sharpness. They were in reality hollow and devoid of substance. The strategies they employed to attempt to control you were nothing more than smoke and mirrors, illusions crafted to scare, confuse, and ultimately intimidate. They behaved as if the damage they inflicted was permanent and irreversible, as if you were inherently fragile enough to shatter into a million irreparable pieces. Yet here you stand fundamentally untouched in ways they cannot begin to comprehend, walking with unwavering and serene authority while they stumble in panicked disarray, desperately attempting to decipher how everything they so confidently believed would work ultimately failed so spectacularly. Your mere presence now serves as a profound form of retaliation. Every breath you draw, every step you take, every accomplishment you achieve serves as a resounding declaration that their power was ultimately insufficient. They so desperately desired to break you that even the most trivial sign of your continued existence now feels like a crushing personal defeat to them. They failed to account for the undeniable fact that some individuals are inherently built not to fold under pressure, not to succumb to relentless attacks, but to rise even stronger and more resilient in the face of adversity. Your resilience transcends mere survival. It is irrefutable proof that their assault lacked any genuine foundation, any real force behind it. Now their shock and frustration are compounded by the inescapable realization that the very thing they so desperately desired to destroy is the very thing that is proving their abject failure. You do not need to engage with them directly or retaliate in kind. The simple fact that you remain unshaken is already louder and more impactful than any words or actions you could possibly employ. Your very life has become the undeniable testament to the fact that their efforts were utterly wasted, that their schemes were ultimately powerless, and that you, against all odds and contrary to all their malicious intentions, have emerged as the undisputed victor. Fifth, they assumed you would engage in direct combat, but you chose to fight from a position of higher moral ground. They anticipated that you would meet them head-on, engaging in a tit-for-tat exchange, returning gossip for gossip, hex for hex, sinking to their level. That is precisely what they desired, a visible and messy conflict in which they could quantify your strength, and in their warped minds claim some semblance of victory. They envisioned you descending to their squalid depths, becoming entangled in the petty chaos they had so meticulously orchestrated, and granting them the perverse satisfaction of witnessing your struggles. But you refused to adhere to their predetermined script. You consciously chose not to respond on the same base plane on which they were operating. Instead, you fought from a position of higher ground where their crude weapons could not reach and their devious strategies could not penetrate. By resolutely refusing to engage with their toxic frequency, you fundamentally shifted the entire battlefield. While they expended vast amounts of energy plotting, disseminating lies, and attempting to provoke dramatic reactions, you moved with quiet determination, unwavering purpose, and strategic precision. Every attempt they made to ensnare you became a futile exercise in self-deception. They were flailing wildly at shadows, foolishly imagining they could strike something solid while you remained untouchable, above, unfettered by their meticulously crafted schemes. They anticipated a confrontational showdown, but all they received was your serene elevation, which left them feeling frustrated, disoriented, and utterly exhausted. The brilliance of fighting from a position of higher ground lies in its ability to turn the enemy's aggression against themselves. Their concentrated energy focused on dragging you down into their mire only served to deepen their own entanglement in negativity, paranoia, and utter disarray. Meanwhile, you continued to move forward with unwavering clarity, unshakable purpose, and an unseen protection that they could neither predict nor counter. Every effort they made to provoke a reaction, to incite chaos, or to claim a hollow victory was squandered because you were operating from a space they could not even locate on their limited map. This explains why your continued survival and your undeniable progress now feel like such a profound insult to them. They anticipated the theatrical drama of a battle they could readily observe, and instead they are confronted with your quiet and steady ascendance. A tangible demonstration of power they are incapable of measuring or comprehending. You did not merely evade their traps, you rendered them completely irrelevant. You refused to engage on their level, and in doing so, you preserved your precious energy, safeguarded your spirit, and exposed the fundamental emptiness of their malicious attacks. By rising above their petty machinations, you transformed what was intended to be a devastating confrontation into a breathtaking display of your untouchable strength, leaving them utterly confused, deeply frustrated, and profoundly powerless. Sixth, their perceived unity was in reality their greatest vulnerability, not their strength. Their sense of collective purpose was never rooted in genuine strength. It was, in fact, their most significant weakness. They operated under the flawed assumption that by banding together, plotting in large numbers, and feeding off each other's shared bitterness, they could create an unstoppable force designed to dismantle you. What they fundamentally failed to recognize is that alliances forged upon the shifting sands of envy and malice are inherently unstable and ultimately doomed to fail. Every connection they forged was inextricably tied not to genuine loyalty or unwavering integrity, but to a shared and insatiable desire to witness your ultimate downfall. That kind of foundation can never provide lasting support. It is only a matter of time before the crushing weight of their own collective negativity causes it to fracture and crumble. Envy is a highly contagious disease, and within their carefully constructed circle it festered unchecked, consuming everything in its path. Instead of collaborating with clarity and shared vision, their collective thoughts were consumed by incessant comparison, simmering resentment, and a relentless pursuit of one-upmanship. Each individual's bitterness served to fuel the next, creating a destructive chain reaction in which suspicion and internal competition ultimately proved to be far stronger than any actual strategic planning. They were not genuinely working together, they were merely feeding each other's inherent weaknesses, and that ultimately rendered their carefully constructed group far more fragile than they were ever willing to admit. The initial cracks began subtly, a minor argument here, a seed of doubt planted there. But once those initial fractures appeared, the entire alliance began to unravel at an alarming rate. When individuals unite under the banner of spite instead of a shared sense of purpose, every minor conflict inevitably escalates into something far more significant and damaging. Decisions become chaotic and riddled with internal contradictions. Loyalties begin to waver, and fear rapidly replaces any semblance of genuine confidence. They were initially unable to see the disintegration taking place because their primary focus was obsessively directed towards attacking you. But their own intricately constructed system was imploding from within, threatening to consume them all. Their perceived strength in numbers was rapidly transforming into a chaotic circus of paranoia and pervasive mistrust. Meanwhile, you observed quietly from the sidelines, completely untouched by their escalating instability. Every attempt they made to coordinate their efforts against you ultimately backfired because their collective energy was fundamentally misaligned. The more desperately they attempted to synchronize their efforts, the more glaringly obvious their inherent flaws became, and the easier it became for you to maintain your position ahead of the curve. Their reliance on one another's collective bitterness created strategic blind spots and critical miscalculations that ultimately left them exposed and vulnerable. In the end, their perceived unity was nothing more than an illusion, a shimmering mirage of strength that vanished the moment genuine pressure arrived, while they were meticulously preoccupied with holding together a fragile facade of control. The very foundation of their carefully constructed circle was quietly rotting away. And you, standing apart from their chaos, emerged untangled and completely free from the inevitable collapse that they themselves had inadvertently engineered. Their consuming envy, their unhealthy dependence on one another, and their pervasive instability all combined to transform their greatest perceived asset, their sheer numbers, into the very instrument of their ultimate undoing. Seventh, they counted on instilling fear, but you thrived on divine revelation. They placed their faith in the power of fear to control you, naively believing that terror would weaken your spirit, rendering you compliant and easy to manipulate. Every carefully crafted scheme, every insidious lie, every whispered threat of intimidation was meticulously designed to freeze you in your tracks, to make you question your own judgment, to ultimately cause you to stumble and fall. That is the foundational method of attacks. Paralyze the intended target, cloud their ability to think clearly, and feed off the resulting chaos that the pervasive fear creates. But what they fundamentally failed to anticipate was the extraordinary capacity of your resilient mind and unwavering spirit to adapt and overcome. Instead of succumbing to trembling fear, instead of dissolving into a state of utter panic, you transformed their fear tactics into a powerful lens of unparalleled clarity. Every attempt to intimidate you became a valuable lesson in heightened discernment. The very forces they employed to exert pressure upon you inadvertently revealed their underlying patterns, their predictable methods, and their ultimate intentions. You began to perceive the repetitive cycles, the predictable moves and the subtle weaknesses inherent in their deceptive attacks. What they anticipated would thoroughly confuse you ultimately served to teach you exactly how to navigate every seemingly insurmountable obstacle. Their fear-based strategies did not induce paralysis. They instead ignited a powerful surge of profound insight. Every veiled threat, every calculated manipulation, every shadow of impending danger served as a compass, precisely pointing you towards the next strategic move, guiding you safely around the meticulously crafted traps they so confidently believed would ensnare you. That is precisely why they are now consumed by stunned disbelief. They firmly believed that fear would effectively silence you, but instead it only served to sharpen your senses and fortify your resolve. They aimed to make you hesitate to second-guess your every move or even to surrender your hard-won peace of mind. But their tactics only reinforced your vigilance, deepened your awareness, and strengthened your invincible spiritual armor. What they anticipated would render you small, vulnerable, and fundamentally weak actually expanded your understanding of the multifaceted battlefield. You did not simply endure the overwhelming fear. They inadvertently handed you the detailed map to every hidden corner of their insidious strategy, and you skillfully employed it to move freely and confidently while they remained trapped in their own self-created confusion. The irony is as sharp as it is undeniable. Every calculated act of intimidation that should have shattered you only served to elevate you to even greater heights. Every whispered utterance of dread became a radiant beacon exposing their own inherent limitations. They meticulously invested vast amounts of energy in cultivating fear, but fear in your capable hands transformed into profound revelation. And now, standing both untouchable and acutely aware, you have demonstrably shown them that their most potent weapon was ultimately powerless against a spirit that perceives with unwavering clarity, thinks with strategic precision, and steadfastly refuses to bend to their will. What they maliciously intended to serve as your greatest weakness ultimately became your most formidable advantage, leaving them frustrated, exposed, and soundly defeated. Eighth, they attempted to write your ending, failing to realize that you are the author of your own destiny. They endeavored to dictate your ending as if your life were nothing more than a story they possessed the right to control and manipulate. Every malicious rumor, every baseless accusation, every attempt to warp public perception was designed to shape your narrative in a manner that would unfairly favor their twisted agenda. They relentlessly spread carefully constructed lies, deliberately twisted undeniable facts, and fabricated elaborate scenarios, all meticulously designed to portray you as small, insignificant, fundamentally weak, or even defeated. They desperately wanted the world to embrace a distorted version of you that mirrored their own consuming envy, their simmering bitterness, and their elaborate schemes. But what they fundamentally failed to grasp is that you were never destined to be a mere character in their twisted story. You are and have always been the sole author of your own extraordinary life. Their futile efforts to control you were doomed from the very beginning because your life is not dictated by the fickle whims of human opinion or the temporary sting of malice. Every time they attempted to force you into their carefully crafted narrative, you resolutely moved in ways that exposed their lies for what they truly were. Every insidious plot they concocted, every slanderous whisper they disseminated collided head-on with the undeniable reality of who you truly are. Their attempts to fabricate a preordained ending for you ultimately backfired because truth possesses an inherent power to resonate far more profoundly than falsehood. What they anticipated would confine you only served to highlight the stark contrast between their pervasive deception and your unwavering authenticity. The resulting irony is as sharp as it is undeniable. While they labored tirelessly to convince the world and perhaps even themselves that you were fundamentally weak or irrevocably defeated, your deliberate actions, your powerful presence, and your remarkable resilience told a completely different and far more compelling story. Their meticulously crafted script collapsed under its own weight, appearing flimsy and amateurish next to the undeniable proof of your flourishing life. Each carefully constructed lie became nothing more than a poorly written page of bad fiction, while your unwavering reality continued to write compelling chapters of triumph, clarity, and unyielding strength that they were utterly unable to erase or control. What frustrates them most deeply is knowing that no matter how desperately they tried, they could never dictate your ultimate destiny. You were never a character in their twisted story, never held captive beneath their manipulative pen. You move with unwavering freedom, guided by deeply held principles, inspired by a compelling vision, and protected by a higher power that they are utterly incapable of influencing, and every petty attempt to force a narrative only strengthened your position, demonstrating to the world that their shrill voices were ultimately empty while yours resonated with undeniable power. Their malicious plots reveal far more about their own consuming envy and inherent weakness than they do about you and your life. Untarnished and relentlessly flourishing stands as the undeniable evidence that the ending belongs solely to the one who holds the pen, you. Ninth, their weapon of secrecy proved to be impotent against your extraordinary gift of discernment. Their meticulously chosen weapon of secrecy was intended to serve as their greatest advantage, but it ultimately proved to be impotent against your extraordinary gift of discernment. They believed that manipulative silence, strategic shadows, and hidden agendas would provide them with complete control over the entire situation. Every whispered plot, every clandestine meeting, every attempt to manipulate from behind the scenes was meticulously designed to keep you shrouded in darkness, fundamentally vulnerable and desperately grasping at straws. They operated under the flawed assumption that if they acted in secrecy, they could maintain a perpetual advantage, remaining perpetually one step ahead, while you floundered in the dark, desperately attempting to catch up. But what they fundamentally failed to comprehend is that authentic discernment possesses the extraordinary ability to perceive what calculated secrecy desperately attempts to conceal. You did not simply notice their carefully plotted moves, you understood the subtle patterns that underpinned them. Every hidden motive, every concealed intention, every veiled attack became glaringly obvious to you because you were inherently tuned to recognize the unwavering truth even when it was meticulously buried beneath countless layers of calculated deception. Their reliance on shadows offered no genuine cover. Their silence was ultimately transparent. You possessed the innate ability to anticipate their next move before they even executed it. and that remarkable foresight granted you a level of control they never imagined you could possibly possess. That explains why they are now experiencing a level of frustration that transcends all measure. They firmly believed that strategic secrecy would both protect them and grant them significant power over you, but instead it only served to expose their inherent weaknesses for all to see. So to wrap it all up, remember this when faced with adversity and those who seek to undermine you. Your strength lies not just in surviving, but in thriving. It's about recognizing the power within you, understanding that their attempts to diminish you often reveal their own shortcomings, and knowing that your journey is ultimately authored by you, guided by your own inner compass and a higher purpose. You are not a victim of circumstance, but a force of nature. I hope this resonated with you. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your experiences, or any questions you might have. Please drop a comment below and let's start a conversation. And if you found this helpful, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos filled with inspiration and empowering insights. Thanks for watching, for watching, for watching, for watching, for watching.